Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back to another episode of the Mysticism Decoded podcast. I am your host, Aleph. I wanted to take a short break from narrating and analyzing the gateway process because we've had some very important news come up today. If you haven't been paying attention, we had the second hearing on UAP disclosure in the House. This one led by Nancy Mace, Republican from South Carolina. And let's just say right now, the intelligence community is fucking toast. They are done. It is a standing 8 count. What are these people thinking that they could possibly do? The evidence is becoming so overwhelming that it's beyond any sense of rationality for them to be able to continue to deny this. They are at the point where they have to figure out how they're going to disclose it to the American public. Because in today's hearing, it wasn't just, well, maybe secondhand knowledge, this, that, whatever. This is more direct and to the point. Not to the point where they want to say, I was directly touching a UFO, but just short of that. We have government insider whistleblowers providing reports a la the Immaculate Constellation that the government, whether it's the DOD or some other division, we're not exactly 100% sure, but we do know that the DOD is definitely part of it. Actually, I think Immaculate Constellation was reported from whenever I read the Immaculate Constellation article by Schellenberger the other week, that it was within DOD. But it could be others as well, and I'm sure it is. But they just have no legs to stand on anymore. We have a head of weather security / security for Navy / Air Force in Tim Gallaudet giving us a story about how there was a training exercise that nearly had to be called off because there was all these UFOs running around. No one knew what they are. One of the superiors sent an email saying, does anyone know what the hell these things are? Otherwise, we're going to have to call the training session off. Next day, that email just mysteriously gets wiped off of everyone's computer. No one ever talks about it again. Luis Elizondo, in no uncertain terms, said straight out that the US government has alien reverse engineering protocols going on, meaning that they have a program to retrieve crashed UFOs and reverse engineer them. We have been hearing this for a long time. Think about the name Bob Lazar, a name that doesn't even get brought up anymore, that was talking about this, 10, 20 years ago. Let's go through this article here on USA Today by Eric Legata, summing up the biggest revelations. I was just giving you what I remember as the top things on my mind from watching it, but let's see what I might have missed and hit this article right now. All right, the question of whether intelligent alien life is visiting us here on Earth and whether the government is covering it up is no longer a topic reserved solely for conspiracy theorists to debate. So understand this point clearly. The question of whether or not the government is operating a decades-long cover-up of UAP and ET life, that's not a question anymore. This has been certified 100% truth. If you are still skeptical about this, you are not paying attention to all the information that has become available. Congressional leaders continue to pay serious heed to the possibility that not only are unexplained objects violating U.S. airspace, but that the military has spent decades covertly recovering the craft to bolster its own technology. So as I mentioned on the Immaculate Constellation pod, the book The Day After Roswell, that is what the entire book was about, by the whistleblower. What was this guy's name? Let me check it out real quick. Philip Corso, that's his name. So Philip Corso basically sat in the desk of foreign technology during that time period, and it was his role to basically disseminate the different parts of the craft to different divisions of the military for it to be reverse engineered, and for the things that they were able to find out and reverse engineer to basically place that within U.S. industrial sectors and give it out to private companies to essentially expand and scale them. And one of the specific things that he mentions is fiber optics. Another thing that he mentions is night vision goggles. I believe Kevlar might have been one of them as well. But Philip Corso has been telling us about this for an extremely long time. And if he's not a reliable witness, then I don't know who is. On Wednesday, a new slate of witnesses provided fresh testimony on precisely these concerns during a joint hearing by subcommittees of the House Oversight Committee. The hearing, which surpassed 2 hours, represented Congress' latest foray into the topic of UFOs, following another round of testimony in July of 2023. The hearing's title, UAP Exposing the Truth. It's a solid title. I don't have a problem with that. The UAP acronym is the official term the government now uses to refer to the unexplained phenomena, arguing it is less loaded and stigmatized than UFO, but it also accounts for the fact that, as witnesses reinforced on Wednesday, many sightings are objects in the water. So 2 things here. Really, UAP became a new term because the government was trying to throw us off the scent of UFO. So it really started more of a way to have the public pay less attention. At the same time, a byproduct is that it is less stigmatized because it was a new term. So really, I would say, worked against them and worked for them. But I would say that UAP has actually replaced UFO for the most part. But let's not forget the term USO, undersea object, which a UAP can represent a USO as well. And this was brought up during the hearing too. Legislators have spent the past year pushing for new laws that would boost UAP transparency, with one seeking to create a civilian reporting mechanism and one directing the executive branch to declassify certain records. But elected officials and UAP transparency advocates say it's not enough. Sorry, I didn't see the stupid video here. Let me get rid of that. In her opening remarks, Nancy Mace, Republican South Carolina, laid out just why another hearing was needed to call upon transparency from the executive branch and intelligence agencies that have long been guarded about classified UFO information. Of the Department of Defense and its Pentagon headquarters, Mace said the organization's reputation for secrecy is not a track record that instills trust among the public. That is an understatement for sure. The reality is, despite their enormous taxpayer-funded budget, the transparency of the Defense Department and intelligence community have long been abysmal. Let's not forget that the Pentagon failed their last 6 audits, losing billions and billions of dollars without accounts. And it also seems that they've never really actually passed an audit at all. That was brought up today too. Glenn Grothman, Republican, Wisconsin, whose subcommittee held the hearing along with Mace's, had this to add: "We cannot shy away from the unknown when the stakes are so high." Thank you. That is a great way to put it. The stakes are high. We are talking about the nature of reality and the existence of extraterrestrials. No bureaucrat, especially unelected in the deep state or the intelligence community, has the right to withhold this from humanity and all that it implies. And let's not forget, regarding the implications, what it implies regarding religion, which is obviously what my channel is about quite a bit. Here's a look at some of the most compelling testimony that each of the four witnesses provided. Email about UAP wiped from account, retired Navy Rear Admiral says. So Tim Gallaudet, an American oceanographer, he was a high up manager in the Navy, described an email he received in 2015 during a training exercise taking place off the East Coast when he was serving as the U.S. Navy's chief meteorologist. The email warned about multiple near mid-air collisions, and this had to do with what is known now as the Go Fast video and its interactions near FA-18 aircraft. Gallaudet, retired Rear Admiral in the U.S. Navy, testified it was clear that the intent of the email was to ask if anyone was aware of classified technology demonstrations taking place. But the next day, the email appeared to be wiped from his account and everyone else's account, and it never came up at any meeting after that. Gallaudet described a disinformation campaign amongst high levels of the government, including the Pentagon's Office to Investigate UFOs, to discredit reports and the whistleblowers who make them. There's no better way to seek out what you want to disprove by creating the legislative body, or the body that's going to be investigating it, is a better way to put it, so that your investigatory body can discredit and put out false information to disprove what you don't want people to know. And this is what the American government has done to its citizens, folks. It's not much of a surprise anymore. But just think about that. In order for this to be happening, what does that really mean? That means corruption at the highest levels of government. As it says in the Bible, spiritual wickedness in high places. This is spiritual wickedness in high places. There's no other way to put it. Gallaudet also testified about satellite imagery of UAP captured in 2017 that has not yet been shared with Congress. He declined to divulge where the image was taken, but said it was a disc-shaped object. Pressed about what he thinks the objects that have been observed could be, Tim Gallaudet said, non-human, higher intelligence. So Tim Gallaudet is not fucking around. And neither is Luis Elizondo. I don't really understand why he gets a bad rep. He's really risking his reputation, his income, apparently even his life, being ostracized from friends. His wife is going through hell, from what we understand, what we've been told. But he not only said that we have a program to retrieve crashed UAPs and reverse engineer them, but he's also confirming that we are not alone in the cosmos. There are bodies accompanying these craft, and he's reinforcing David Grush's testimony from 2023. Among Grush's claims, and it says here offered without evidence, but it's not that they were offered without evidence. He could not give the evidence outside of a skiff. The guy said 5,000 times I can give you the information in a skiff. So that's not providing evidence. That's just providing it in a closed door manner, because the laws on the books don't protect him well enough that he can come out and say it publicly. So Congress needs to create better whistleblower laws and enforce them so that they don't fear for their lives or livelihood to testify and go public. Grush also accused the Pentagon under oath of being aware of ET activity since the 30s. We know Roswell was 37. Actually, no, Roswell was 47. So he said even before Roswell, some shit that we don't even know about, something in the 30s. Because the first thing that we've ever heard about really in public is Roswell, 1947. Though congressional leaders said they have not substantiated those claims, one witness Wednesday did corroborate much of what Grush said. And I'm just giving my personal opinion here, but David Grush seems to be a reliable witness to me. I don't doubt anything he said. Luis Elizondo, a former military intelligence official who resigned and went public in October 2017 after 10 years of running a Pentagon program to investigate UFO sightings, still made it clear he was constrained in much of what he had to say. But the point is that he was so sickened with the secrecy and what was going on, after running one of the programs for 10 years, he turned whistleblower. In his opening remarks, Elizondo lambasted the intelligence community for its decades of excessive secrecy around UAP, to hide the fact that we are not alone. I agree with you on that one. I believe we as Americans can handle the truth, and I also believe the world deserves the truth, of course. Much of Elizondo's concerns relate to national security, resting on the fact that much of the reported UAP activity has been around military bases and nuclear weapons sites. So we know over the years that we've heard that UAPs are very interested in our nuclear sites and weapons. They're always reported around them, and they've even been reported to turn them off. So that could mean two things. One, we're doing this for your own good to show you that you should not be playing with nuclear weapons. Or two, it's to say your nuclear weapons are a joke to us and we can turn them off whenever we want. It's just a complete show of domination. And it could be different groups of ETs with different intentions. One not so bad and one pretty bad. Because if you understand that there's a duality that exists in our universe of good and evil, even if 99% of ETs are benevolent, 1% of a big number can still be a risk. And in an infinite universe with trillions and trillions and trillions of stars among the galaxies, let's say, hypothetically, there are billions of different ET species. And again, these might sound like big numbers, but keep in mind, you're handicapping, trying to estimate infinity. Infinity. So there's trillions of stars in the observable universe. So I say billions, but we can also be talking, like I said, it's hard to handicap infinity. But let's say it's a huge number of ET life out there. 1% is still likely to be not benevolent. So we need to prepare ourselves. We need to know who's with us and who's not with us. And we need to make deals, have diplomatic ties with the ones who will have our backs and support us, so that the ones that maybe don't like us so much don't fuck with us. It's the same thing that a smaller country will do with the US. Like Israel partners with the US to be protected by the host of Muslim countries that aren't such a fan of theirs. And I'm not saying all Muslim countries, but we could take Iran, we could take Turkey, we could take Syria. Israel probably has the strongest army in the world, pound for pound. But we're talking about a country whose size is equivalent about to the state of New Jersey, and they could simply be overwhelmed. Not to mention all the Iranian proxies. So the same way Israel works with the US to have the US support it, that's what we as a species, humanity, the planet Earth, we need to partner with benevolent, strong, noble, good extraterrestrial species to help protect us from those that may wish us harm, whatever small amount that may be. It only takes one, so we need to be protected. So I personally do believe that 99% of ET races are benevolent and mean well and are good and noble. But there's still going to be that once in a blue moon species out there that it's not going to be so good for us. And this is just the nature of reality. There is no good without evil. There's no evil without good. Action takes place between the poles. It's a more esoteric subject that I'll be going into in the future on other pods, getting into why evil exists in this world. I actually had someone ask me earlier today, if God is good, then why is there evil? And I didn't have a lot of time to explain it to her, and I'm not really going to go into it deeply in this pod either. But you have to understand that God is good and evil at the same time. In the beginning, there's only the unity. Whenever God expanded on the unity and created duality, everything has its opposite extremes. There is light and there is dark. There is big and there is small. There is good and there is evil. The action takes place between the poles. Without the extreme opposite poles, you just have unity. And God created this universe for a reason. He already was the unity. In perfection, you have the trade-off of boredom. Just think about it here. If you are a super rich person with access to the greatest technology on earth, and you are, let's say, a multi-millionaire that doesn't necessarily need to work, what is the trade-off of being super successful, super smart, and having basically infinite technology? Well, you've conquered everything there is to conquer. So basically, you're bored. So when you're bored, you have to do something to entertain yourself. And this is part of why God created the universe, God created reality. As it says in Kabbalistic texts, partially God created this world for delight, meaning for entertainment purpose. We're essentially a reality show or a movie that God gets to watch. And the other component is that it's for the purpose of the evolution of consciousness, God unfolding himself to himself in order to know himself. And that consciousness is evolving through each of us individually as we evolve. So understand that this dichotomy of good and evil exists on all planes. And it means that 99% of ET races are going to be good and benevolent, but there are going to be some out there that are going to be a risk to us, and we have to protect ourselves, and we have to partner with the good ones. And as many have testified before, Elizondo reiterated that the objects observed have often outmaneuvered U.S. military aircraft and were flying in a way beyond the capabilities of known human technology. In fact, he alluded to one secure email he observed that used the word stalked. So again, this is what I'm saying. This is a complete show of force, domination, intimidation. They're saying your weapons are a joke to us. We can fuck with you however we want to. And I'm not even saying that these are necessarily the non-benevolent ETs. These can still be the good ETs. But the good ETs still might want to send a message that I'm Papa Bear and you're the cub. But at the same time, it could also be the non-benevolent ETs. So for Luis Elizondo to say that this is a risk to U.S. national security, he's not necessarily wrong. So even though Stephen Greer says that 100% of ET races are benevolent, and I like Dr. Stephen Greer and I respect him, I believe that he himself knows that's not true. Even if it's 99% to 1%, you still have to take precautions. One of the more compelling revelations was a report shared by journalist Michael Schellenberger about a secretive UAP program created in 2017, following a New York Times story exposing another top secret Pentagon program. Intelligence communities are sitting on a huge amount of visual and other information about UAP, Schellenberger testified, and they have had it for a very long time, and it's not funny, not fuzzy photos and videos. Well, it's not funny either. They are very clear and high resolution, and there could be hundreds or thousands of these images and videos per Schellenberger. This is the author whose article I narrated the other week, Immaculate Constellation. Basically, it says that the government has all these images and photos in separate hard drives, separate networks that are outside the realm of what is being shared with Congress, which is completely illegal. So it's an illegal program. And whenever there's an illegal program, that means you have people doing illegal things and criminality. Gotta call a spade, that is what it is. NASA called upon to invest in UAP research. While NASA released its own UAP report last September, Michael Gold, a former administrator at the space agency, called on the organization to do more. NASA's investment into UAP research would make a powerful statement to the scientific community that UAP should be taken seriously. Gold, who is part of an independent NASA UAP study team, testified. I'd say that this guy added the least to the hearing. I mean, he was enthusiastic. He was for UAP transparency, it would seem. But he didn't really add anything too groundbreaking. And that's pretty much the article in totality. But the point is that the intelligence community, they are basically toast. They are on their back leg. They are about to get knocked the fuck out. They cannot continue to hide this for much longer. This is going to only lead to another hearing, not only in the House, but probably next in the Senate. We have Donald Trump back in office, thank God. And in my personal opinion, Donald Trump wants to be the one to provide UAP disclosure. Think about in the annals of history how you're going to go down if you are the president of the United States that informed the country and the world that we are not alone officially. I think that Donald Trump wants this. I think he also wants to be transparent with the American people, and he's honest even to a fault a lot of times. But let's see what happens over the next 4 years. If I had to bet whether or not we get disclosure and Donald Trump is the one to do it, I would say that 51%, yes, I would bet some money on it. Donald Trump knows what that would mean to his legacy to be the one that provides that disclosure. And let's not forget, in his last administration, Donald Trump is the president that created the Space Force. That's huge. If that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's for the same reason, because obviously, well, this is my opinion, but I think there's good circumstantial evidence to support this, that Donald Trump wanted to disclosed UAPs and ETs in his last administration. This is the claim that Chaim Eshad made, who was the head of Israeli space security for 30 years, that also said that the US and Israel have been working with ETs for decades and that they have bases on both the Mars and the moon. If that sounds crazy to you, I'm sorry. You're going to have to get it together. Keep in mind as well that our reality is essentially God's imagination crystallized into dense material come to life. Imagination is almost the same as a digital computer simulation where anything can be created, and that is the nature of our reality. Thus, we have UFOs, ETs, and phenomena such as time travel, completely real, something I've talked about on previous pods, but I'll be getting into in more detail in further pods. My book that I wrote, Connect to Source, comparing the first book of Kabbalah, the Sefer Yetzirah, to the Gateway Process, goes into this in great detail and why it is that we experience reality moment to moment the way we do in our dimension. I go into this into great detail as well, as I am making the claim that I've uncovered details regarding the fifth dimension from the Sefer Yetzirah, which I am making the claim is referred to by the Hebrew word sipur in the Sefer Yetzirah, where sipur means to inform, and the fifth dimension is related to the fourth dimension in that the fourth dimension sits at the middle of the fifth dimension, which gives us a linear sense of time. Had it not been at the middle, time could be grainy, chunky, etc. So like I said, I'll be getting into this in more detail in future pods, especially whenever I start covering my book, which I'll do after the Gateway Process series. But if you don't want to wait, you can always just go ahead and buy my book. It's on Amazon. The link is in my description. But we're here, folks. We're living in the age of disclosure. Now, what has not come up at all yet, but eventually it will, is once it becomes accepted that ETs are real, and that's coming closer every single day, eventually it's going to get to the point of how do ETs interact with the Bible. And like I said, this is much of what my channel is about. And in my book, I make the distinction and differentiation between God, that infinite energy, infinite consciousness creator, who is referred to in Kabbalistic terms as Ein Sof, meaning no end or infinite, and how that is not the same as the Elohim of the Bible, Elohim being a plural Hebrew word, where that is referring to a plural group of deities, and the deities that we are referring to with the Elohim are equivalently the Mesopotamian gods, are equivalently the original pharaohs of Egypt, and the more popular term that they are known by, Anunnaki. Yes, the same Anunnaki that Zecharia Sitchin wrote about in his books starting in the late 70s. No, he has never been debunked, although there are arrogant people out there that just want to rush and say, oh, Sitchin has been debunked. No, he has not. Never. Any argument made claiming to debunk Sitchin is weak and fraudulent and almost never includes any good points. But certainly he has not been debunked. Everything that he wrote about starting in the 70s and 80s is going to come to light again. My work is essentially a takeoff and expansion of Sitchin's work, although I will have to do a whole series on Elohim versus Ein Sof and the difference, because even though I would have liked to have just taken off where Sitchin has left off, it has become apparent to me that no matter what, people are going to get stuck on that topic first and not just pay attention to the expansion or the things that come after that once you accept it. So I will be doing an entire series on Elohim versus Ein Sof in the future as well. If you've liked what you've heard here, please like, share, comment, subscribe, just like everyone else asked for. The core of this channel is actually to interpret books of Judeo-Christian mysticism, Kabbalah and Merkavah mysticism, and even mysticism books from other religions or other ancient texts, but primarily Kabbalah, Merkavah, through the modern lens of modern technology, modern scientific theory, but also ufology. And I will continue to give UAP disclosure updates as well. Stick with me on this channel. I promise you, you will get information in a way that no one else is delivering it to you, and no one else is willing to deliver it to you. I don't care what people think about me. I don't care if people are skeptical and they want to dismiss because they think it's ludicrous that the Elohim of the Bible are the Anunnaki RETs, that they think it's ludicrous to make a differentiation between that and the all-creator God, and they don't want to accept modern science or even listen to all the evidence that shows and proves that God is a form of energy, a state of energy in infinity, whereas everything else, our universe, is confined energy slowed down so that it has frequency, form, individuality, and as a byproduct, location. And again, this is just touching on the tip of the iceberg, but I just want to provide context. I always like to provide a little context in case this is the first episode of the pod anyone has ever seen. But this is the type of information that needs to come out. No one else is doing it in the way I'm doing it. That's why I am doing it. If someone was doing it already, I would probably just be watching like you. But it doesn't exist. The same reason why I wrote my book. No one has ever written a book comparing the CIA gateway process to the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, the first book of Kabbalah, to show how it is talking about the same things. One is using modern English language. One is using poetic, enigmatic language. But whenever you decrypt it properly, we are talking about the same things of the creation of the universe and also the creation of the golem, which people think is mythical and folklore, just like they thought or think that UFOs and ETs are mythical and folklore. They are not. The golem is not either. And I am making the case, I submit to you, the science for the golem is laid out bare in the CIA gateway process in the section called patterning. And I tie that back to the passages of the Sefer Yetzirah, where we are given instruction as to how to create a golem. So thanks again for joining me on the pod today. Catch you on the next one. Aleph Lev out.